Hi there, I'm Sridhar Chandrasekaran, and I'm excited to share my knowledge and experience in transmission line construction with you. In this series, my goal is to equip engineers and managers with the essential know-how they need before stepping into the field and taking charge of their projects. We'll dive into everything from the basics of construction and execution planning to tendering, budgeting, and even touch on the engineering ethics that are so important in our profession. Each week, I'll be posting a new video. In each chapter, we'll explore relevant technical topics, discuss ethical considerations, and wrap up with a thought-provoking quote. So, stay tuned. There's a lot to cover. Disclaimer. Just a quick note. The content in these videos is meant for informational and basic educational purposes only. These videos aren't intended to provide professional advice or endorsements. This helps set the right expectations about the nature of what we're sharing, especially since we draw on material from various sources under the principle of fair use. In our previous chapters, we covered essential basics, including electricity and power generation, building a foundational understanding necessary for transmission line construction. Now, we're ready to dive into the prerequisite activities that lay the groundwork for beginning construction. A prerequisite refers to something that must be completed, achieved, or acquired before proceeding to a further stage or undertaking a particular task. It is a condition, requirement, or qualification that needs to be met in order to ensure successful progress or participation in a subsequent activity or endeavor. Prerequisites are commonly encountered in various contexts, including education, employment, projects, and procedures. In project management, certain tasks or activities may have prerequisites, meaning that they cannot be started until certain conditions are met or predecessor tasks are completed. Prerequisites are important because they help ensure that individuals or projects are adequately prepared and equipped to successfully undertake subsequent activities, tasks, or responsibilities. They serve as a foundation upon which further progress or development can be built. The need for a new transmission line can arise due to various factors. Understanding these drivers is crucial for planning and executing a successful transmission line project. Increasing demand for electricity, connecting new power generation sources, replacement or upgrade of existing infrastructure. After identifying the need, defining the project's objectives, scope, and requirements is essential. This process includes the following considerations: project objectives, scope of the project requirements, voltage level and distance, capacity requirements, routing options. In this chapter, we'll explore the key elements of transmission line planning. First, assessing the demand. Secondly, identifying the necessary resource. And third, developing a solid planning framework for execution. Understanding these three fundamental topics, demand, resource, and planning, is essential before starting any activity in power transmission line construction. Each element lays the groundwork for a successful project, ensuring that the power needs are met, resources are effectively allocated, and project activities are executed efficiently. 1. Demand for requirement of power. Understanding the current and future demand for electricity in the target area is crucial for planning a transmission line. Accurate demand forecasts help ensure that the transmission line will meet long-term needs. Demand assessment involves studying growth trends, industrial expansion, and any factors that could increase or decrease the need for electricity. Second, resource assessment. Energy resources to identify the types of energy sources the transmission line will connect to and ensure compatibility with these resources. This includes assessing the stability, capacity, and reliability of the generation sources. Financial resources to budget for materials, labor, regulatory compliance, environmental assessments, and other costs associated with the project. Effective financial planning is critical for keeping the project on track and within budget. Human resources to ensure that qualified personnel, such as engineers, project managers, and construction workers, are available for the planning and construction phases. Skilled professionals are essential for project success and safety. 3. Planning for project execution. Route selection to analyze and select a route that minimizes environmental impact, reduces project costs, and aligns with regulatory requirements. This involves a thorough evaluation of topography, land ownership, and potential environmental impacts. Environmental compliance to obtain necessary permits, conduct environmental impact assessments, and engage with stakeholders to address any concerns. Compliance with local, state, and federal regulations is crucial for project approval. Scheduling and logistics to develop a detailed project timeline that includes each construction phase, material transportation, and equipment availability. Planning these logistics ensures that the project progresses smoothly and efficiently. In summary, identifying the need for a transmission line, defining project objectives, and conducting thorough planning are essential steps for successfully implementing a transmission line project. By understanding demand, assessing resources, and carefully planning execution, engineers can ensure that the transmission line meets the energy needs of communities while minimizing environmental impacts and managing costs effectively. One, demand management. Let's now delve into the demand for electricity, a crucial element in planning power transmission infrastructure. Accurate understanding and forecasting of electricity demand are essential to ensure a reliable and efficient power supply. Demand fluctuates due to factors such as economic growth, population changes, industrial activity, and technological advancements, making it a dynamic component of energy management. Below are the key aspects of understanding electricity demand that we will examine in detail. First, historical demand analysis. Second, load profiles. Third, factors affecting demand. 4. Weather and seasonal variations. 5. Economic trends. 6. Technological advances. 7. Demographic changes. 8. Policy and regulatory factors. 9. Demand response programs. 10. Forecasting and planning. 11th. Infrastructure planning. 12th. Energy efficiency initiatives. 13. Resilience and reliability. 1. Historical demand analysis. In the context of transmission line construction planning, historical demand analysis provides valuable insights into how electricity consumption patterns have evolved over time. This analysis helps in making informed decisions regarding the capacity and design of transmission lines. The following factors are essential in conducting an effective historical demand analysis. Collecting and analyzing past data on electricity consumption is the foundation of historical demand analysis. This data can show how much electricity was used across various sectors: residential, commercial, industrial, and in different regions. Recognizing patterns and trends in electricity demand over time is crucial. For example, increased adoption of electric vehicles or shifts toward renewable energy sources may affect demand patterns. By identifying these trends, planners can anticipate future changes and plan accordingly. Demand for electricity often fluctuates with the seasons. For example, electricity usage tends to increase in summer and winter due to heating and cooling needs. Analyzing seasonal variations allows planners to account for these changes in capacity planning. Observing demand over various time frames, daily, monthly, and annually, provides a more comprehensive view of electricity usage. Long-term changes, such as those driven by urbanization or industrial growth, are important considerations for long-term transmission line planning. Identifying peak demand periods, such as during the hottest or coldest times of the year, and off-peak periods, like late nights or weekends, helps in understanding when demand is at its highest and lowest. This information is essential for determining the capacity needed to ensure reliable service during peak periods without overbuilding. Two, load profiles. Load profiles depict the variation in electricity usage over specific time frames, like daily or yearly. They reflect how electricity demand fluctuates based on time of day, week, and seasonal factors. Utilities and grid operators use load profiles to allocate resources efficiently and plan capacity. By examining load profiles, they can optimize infrastructure investments and develop demand-side management programs. Load profiles can vary significantly depending on factors such as whether the area is primarily residential, commercial, or industrial, the region's climate, and consumer behavior. Third, factors affecting demand: increased industrial activity, residential expansion, and commercial growth lead to higher electricity demand. More people typically mean higher electricity consumption, especially in urbanizing areas. Extreme weather can spike demand for heating or cooling, while seasonal variations affect electricity needs, for example, summer air conditioning. New technologies, like energy-efficient appliances, distributed generation, such as solar, and smart meters, change how and when electricity is consumed. Shifts in population density, urbanization, and aging populations can influence demand patterns. Government policies promoting renewable energy, energy efficiency, or electrification impact demand. Incentives for electric vehicle adoption or efficiency improvements can lead to increased or decreased electricity needs. Four, weather and seasonal variations. Weather is a significant factor in demand fluctuations. For instance, hot summers lead to increased cooling demand, while cold winters drive heating needs. Utilities must plan for these variations by ensuring adequate capacity for peak periods and optimizing resources for less demanding seasons. 5. Economic trends. Economic growth often correlates with increased electricity demand as industries expand production. Growth in residential construction or commercial developments, for example, can lead to heightened electricity needs. Monitoring economic trends enables planners to anticipate changes in electricity demand, adjusting supply strategies accordingly. 6. Technological advances. Improvements in energy-efficient appliances, smart meters, and distributed generation reduce overall demand, while potentially altering demand patterns. These enable more flexible electricity distribution and may influence demand by allowing for time-of-use pricing or demand response programs. 7. Demographic changes. Urbanization tends to increase demand as populations shift to city centers. Demographic shifts, like an aging population, may change overall energy use, impacting peak times and load profiles. 8. Policy and regulatory factors. Incentives for renewable energy adoption, energy efficiency programs, and regulations on emissions affect electricity demand. Policies encouraging conservation and efficiency lead to lower electricity consumption over time. 9. Demand response programs. Demand response programs enable consumers to modify their electricity usage based on price signals or grid conditions, helping manage peak demand. These programs can reduce stress on the grid during peak times, improve reliability, and decrease the need for additional infrastructure investments. 10. Forecasting and planning. Using historical data and models, utilities forecast future demand, incorporating factors like economic growth, technological advances, and policy changes. By understanding potential future scenarios, planners can prepare for varying demand levels, ensuring grid reliability and efficiency. 11th, infrastructure planning. Planners need to ensure that generation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure can meet current and projected demand. As demand increases, upgrades to existing infrastructure may be necessary to handle higher loads and improve resilience. 12th, energy efficiency initiatives. Energy efficiency programs for consumers, businesses, and industries can lower overall demand, reducing stress on the grid and minimizing the need for new capacity. Efficiency initiatives also contribute to sustainability goals by decreasing electricity consumption and consequently emissions. 13. Resilience and reliability. Ensuring a reliable power supply during extreme weather and emergencies is essential for both safety and economic stability. Planning for redundancy and backup systems enhances grid resilience, minimizing the impact of disruptions on consumers and industries. Understanding the demand for electricity is essential for effective power system management and planning. It involves analyzing historical data, identifying load profiles, and considering various factors such as weather, economic trends, and technological advancements. Accurate demand forecasting and thoughtful planning ensure that power supply can meet current and future needs while supporting sustainability and resilience. Second, resource management. Once the demand for electricity is confirmed, the client, typically a governmental body or utility company, needs to identify and allocate essential resources for transmission line construction. These resources are critical for ensuring the project meets technical and regulatory standards, stays on schedule, and remains within budget. Transmission line construction requires a comprehensive resource plan that includes power availability assessments from the nearest generation source or possible upgrades to nearby sources, as well as feasibility studies to evaluate the optimal project route, design specifications, timeline, workforce, and estimated costs. The client also needs to coordinate with contracting teams and secure funding, either through government support, private investment, or other financial sources, to successfully initiate and carry the project through to completion. Once the client establishes the demand for power, the next step is to evaluate resource availability for transmission line construction. Here's the topics of each key resource. 1. Nearest power generation availability. 2. Upgrading available power generation. 3. Excess available power source from nearest grid. 4. Financial source. 5. Contracting. 6th, consulting engineers. 7th, right-of-way feasibility. Now, let us explore the key topics for the resources management. 1. Nearest power generation availability. Once the power demand is identified, this process involves evaluating existing power generation facilities that are in proximity to the proposed transmission line and assessing their capacity to meet the projected demand. Understanding the availability of nearby power generation sources ensures efficient energy transmission, minimizes transmission losses, and often reduces overall project costs. To understand further, here's a detailed breakdown of what this evaluation entails. A. Identifying nearby power plants. The first step is identifying all existing power generation facilities within a feasible distance of the demand center. This includes coal, gas, nuclear, hydro, solar, or wind power plants. By using Geographic Information Systems, GIS, and mapping tools, engineers can determine which power plants are close enough to be considered viable sources for meeting the demand. B. Assessing generation capacity. By evaluating installed capacity, each power plant has a specific installed capacity, which represents the maximum amount of electricity it can generate. The nearest power generation facilities are reviewed to determine if they have sufficient capacity to meet the new demand. Load factor and capacity factor help assess the actual amount of power a facility can deliver over time. For instance, renewable energy plants like solar or wind may have a lower capacity factor due to variability in weather conditions, while baseload plants like coal or nuclear generally have higher availability. C. Analyzing plant reliability and operational history. Evaluating the operational history of the nearby plants helps determine their reliability in delivering consistent power. Plants with frequent shutdowns, maintenance issues, or aging infrastructure may not be ideal as primary power sources for new demand. And knowing the seasonal availability, some plants, like hydroelectric facilities, may experience seasonal variations in power generation. Understanding these fluctuations is essential for accurate demand planning. D. Understanding transmission losses and distance. Power loss during transmission is inevitable, especially over long distances. The closer the power generation source to the demand center, the lower the transmission losses, which translates to more efficient and cost-effective power delivery. For maximum efficiency, the client and planning team aim to source power from the nearest plants that meet demand without excessive energy loss. E. Evaluating grid connectivity. The availability of existing transmission infrastructure is crucial. If nearby plants are already connected to a well-developed grid network, integrating the new demand may be more straightforward. Evaluating the locations of substations, interconnection points, and switching stations is essential for determining if the transmission line can connect directly to the nearest generation source or if upgrades are needed. F. Evaluating environmental and regulatory constraints. Choosing a nearby power generation source requires assessing the environmental impact, especially if connecting to a new power plant or expanding an existing one. Compliance with environmental regulations and mitigation of any ecological impact are critical components of project planning. Each region may have specific regulations regarding transmission line construction and connection to generation sources. Early evaluation of the permitting requirements for accessing the nearest power generation source is essential to avoid delays. G. Considering future power demand growth. The selected power generation source should ideally have the potential to accommodate future demand growth. Evaluating the nearest power plants for possible expansion or upgrades ensures the infrastructure remains viable as demand increases. Establishing agreements with power providers for a consistent supply of electricity is essential. These contracts help ensure the availability of power over time, especially if demand projections grow. H. Cost and economic feasibility. Analyzing the cost per unit of electricity from the nearest plant, including transmission costs, helps determine economic feasibility. Clients aim to source power at a rate that balances reliability, efficiency, and cost-effectiveness. If the nearest power generation source has high costs or reliability issues, alternative options, like new renewable projects or upgrades to other nearby plants, are also evaluated. By finding the nearest power generation, availability involves a thorough assessment of the nearby power plant's capacities, reliability, operational history, and environmental compliance. It also considers the cost of transmission, grid connectivity, and potential for future expansion. This evaluation ensures that the chosen power source can reliably and efficiently meet the project's demand requirements, ultimately supporting the successful development of the transmission line infrastructure. Second, upgrading available power generation. In cases where there is no excess power generation capacity nearby, upgrading the existing power generation facilities becomes a viable solution to meet the increased demand. Upgrading an existing power generation facility generally involves enhancing its capacity, efficiency, or both, through modifications to its infrastructure, equipment, or fuel sources. This option can provide a cost-effective way to increase electricity supply without constructing a new generation facility from scratch. Here's a closer look at how power generation upgrades are typically implemented. A. Increasing capacity of the existing facility. Additional turbines or generators can be installed to raise the overall output of the facility, depending on available space and infrastructure. This is common in thermal, hydropower, and gas-fired plants. In some facilities, generation is only partial due to scheduling or operational limitations. Increasing generation hours can raise output to meet demand, though this requires careful planning to avoid equipment wear and additional maintenance needs. B. Upgrading equipment for improved efficiency. Replacing older turbines, generators, and other critical components with high-efficiency models can increase the facility's output with the same fuel input. In gas and steam plants, advanced turbines can enhance efficiency significantly. Implementing modern control and monitoring systems can optimize operational efficiency, reducing energy loss and maximizing output. Automation systems and smart sensors provide real-time feedback, enabling quick adjustments to improve performance. Upgraded cooling technology can allow the facility to operate at higher power levels by preventing overheating, which is especially important for thermal power plants. C. Fuel and source modifications. In coal and oil-fired plants, using higher quality fuel or blending fuels can increase efficiency. Higher-grade fuel generates more energy, thereby increasing the plant's output without adding infrastructure. In some cases, renewable sources like solar or wind can be added as hybrid setups to supplement power production, especially during peak demand. For example, solar panels can be installed at the site to reduce dependency on primary fuel sources and increase capacity. In gas-fired plants, upgrading to a combined cycle system, where waste heat from the gas turbine is used to produce steam and drive an additional turbine, can increase the efficiency and output by up to 50%. D. Environmental and regulatory upgrades. Adding or upgrading emission control technologies can allow a plant to operate at higher capacities within environmental regulations. This includes systems like flue gas desulfurization (FGD) for sulfur reduction and selective catalytic reduction (SCR) for nitrogen oxide control. Facilities can increase their operational levels by improving waste and water management systems, reducing the environmental impact and enabling higher production within regulatory guidelines. E. Grid connection and infrastructure enhancement. Increased capacity at a generation facility requires that nearby transmission lines are capable of carrying the additional load. Upgrades to transmission infrastructure may include installing higher capacity cables and reinforcing substations. In cases of variable output or peak loads, integrating energy storage solutions such as batteries can stabilize supply and maximize output without needing additional generation. By implementing these upgrades, clients can effectively increase the capacity and efficiency of existing power generation facilities, ensuring a more stable power supply to meet rising demand. When additional power is needed for a transmission line project and no new power generation is immediately feasible, drawing from an excess power source in the nearest grid can be an effective solution. A. Assessment of available capacity. Engineers conduct load flow analyses to determine if the nearest grid substation has sufficient excess capacity to meet the new demand without affecting existing consumers. This study evaluates the load profiles, existing transmission lines, and substation capabilities, ensuring that there is an adequate reserve margin. A buffer of excess generation capacity on the grid is essential for handling unexpected spikes or additional loads. B. Technical compatibility and grid connectivity. The excess power from the grid must match the voltage and frequency requirements of the transmission line. This ensures the power supply remains stable and compatible with the destination grid. Upgrades to substations, transformers, and circuit breakers might be required to handle the increased load capacity and ensure smooth power flow from the grid to the new transmission line. C. Transmission line, routing, and design. The routing of the transmission line from the nearest grid substation to the demand site is planned carefully, considering geographical obstacles, environmental impact, and proximity to other utility structures. Secure the right-of-way permissions along the line's route, addressing any regulatory or land use requirements to minimize disruption to surrounding areas. D. Regulatory and operational agreements. Agreements with the grid operator may include power purchase agreements specifying the power supply, tariffs, and connection points. These agreements ensure regulatory compliance and align with the operational standards of the utility grid. Often, the utility company will require load balancing services, which help stabilize the grid by distributing power demand effectively and managing the load without overburdening any single line or substation. E. Reliability and safety measures. Redundant systems and backup lines are often added to maintain reliability, reducing the risk of power outages or load shedding due to over-reliance on a single source. Implementation of safety measures, including protective relays, circuit breakers, and surge arresters, is essential to prevent equipment overload, minimize outage risks, and ensure worker and public safety. F. Monitoring and maintenance. SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition, and other real-time monitoring systems are often installed to monitor power flow, detect any anomalies, and manage load fluctuations. Regular maintenance of the grid connections, transformers, substations, and transmission lines is conducted to ensure that the infrastructure remains robust enough to handle the sustained power demand. By tapping into excess power from the nearest grid is a viable and efficient solution for meeting power demand, provided the grid has the required capacity and regulatory and technical standards are met. This strategy allows for prompt power delivery while optimizing existing resources, making it a practical choice for expanding transmission line capacity. Fourth, financial source. For constructing a power transmission line, securing a financial source is essential to cover upfront costs, infrastructure development, and long-term project maintenance. Several common funding approaches are employed by electricity boards and utilities to ensure projects are financed effectively. Here's a detailed look at some of these options. A. Government funding. Government funding is often allocated directly through the federal, state, or local budgets, especially if the project aligns with national development goals. Electricity boards may receive dedicated budget lines for transmission infrastructure to ensure reliable power delivery. In some cases, governments provide grants or subsidies aimed at supporting infrastructure that enhances public welfare, addresses regional power needs, or expands access to electricity in underserved areas. Government entities or development banks, like the World Bank or Asian Development Bank, may offer low-interest loans to reduce financing costs, making large projects more feasible. B. Public-private partnerships, PPPs, under Built-Operate-Transfer (BOT) arrangement, a private company finances, constructs, and operates the transmission line for a defined period. During this time, they may recover costs through fees or tariffs. Once the period ends, the ownership of the infrastructure is transferred to the government or electricity board. In Built-Own-Operate (BOO) model, a private entity finances, constructs, owns, and operates the transmission line. Ownership remains with the private entity indefinitely, and they are responsible for long-term maintenance, with revenue generated through transmission fees. Governments and private companies may establish joint ventures to share the financial and operational responsibilities of the project, which allows for shared risk and benefits. C. International funding and developmental assistance. Multilateral development banks, like the World Bank, Asian Development Bank (ADB), and African Development Bank, provide funding for transmission line projects in developing regions. These funds often come with favorable loan terms and may be contingent upon meeting social, environmental, and governance standards. Foreign governments or multinational companies may invest in local infrastructure projects, providing necessary funding in exchange for economic or operational interests. D. Green bonds and sustainable financing. As transmission lines are integral to connecting renewable energy sources, electricity boards may issue green bonds specifically to raise capital for projects that have an environmental benefit. Green bonds attract investors interested in sustainable initiatives, often at lower interest rates. Some transmission projects meet environmental, social, and governance (ESG) standards, making them eligible for sustainable investment funds. This funding is particularly useful for renewable integration and projects that support energy transition goals. E. Revenue generation from tariffs and usage fees. Once the line is operational, the electricity board may impose transmission tariffs or usage fees, generating revenue to cover operational costs, debt repayment, and maintenance. Long-term contracts with independent power producers, IPPs, can provide a steady income source. The IPPs may pay fees for using the transmission line to deliver their power to consumers or the main grid. F. Local financial institutions and bonds. Domestic banks and financial institutions may provide loans to electricity boards, often guaranteed by the government, to reduce lending risks. These loans cover capital expenses and can be paid off through future revenue. Electricity boards can issue bonds specifically for infrastructure development, attracting both institutional and individual investors. These bonds are repaid with interest over time from the revenue generated by the transmission line. Securing financial resources is critical to ensure a smooth start and sustainable development of transmission line projects. Whether through government funding, public-private partnerships, or sustainable finance, each method offers unique advantages and is chosen based on project scope, financial feasibility, and long-term goals. This approach enables electricity boards to build essential infrastructure while meeting financial, environmental, and regulatory requirements. Five. Qualified contractors. Once the demand for power supply is identified, during identifying the resources, engineering contractors must be carefully selected based on their capabilities and qualifications for the construction of a power transmission line. This process ensures that the chosen contractor has the necessary experience, resources, and expertise to execute the project efficiently, safely, and within the specified standards. Some of the factors in identifying qualified contractors are as mentioned. A. Technical expertise and experience. Contractors should demonstrate experience in similar transmission line construction projects, including their familiarity with the specific challenges of high voltage and long-distance transmission. Reviewing a contractor's portfolio of previous projects helps assess their track record, especially on projects that match the scale and complexity of the current requirements. B. Resource availability. The contractor must have access to qualified professionals such as engineers, project managers, technicians, line workers, and safety officers with relevant experience in transmission line construction. Availability of specialized equipment, such as cranes, pullers, tensioners, and excavation machinery, is essential for efficient execution. Contractors with these resources in-house or through reliable suppliers are preferable. Contractors should have established relationships with suppliers for materials such as towers, conductors, insulators, and hardware, ensuring timely and quality deliveries. C. Financial stability. A financially stable contractor is less likely to experience disruptions due to cash flow issues, and they are more capable of managing unexpected costs. The client may review financial statements and credit reports to confirm stability. Contractors should have the necessary bonding capacity and insurance coverage to mitigate risks associated with large-scale construction projects. This is particularly important for high-risk tasks in transmission line construction. D. Safety and environmental compliance. Contractors should have a strong safety track record and establish protocols for minimizing workplace accidents. Reviewing safety documentation, such as OSHA records or other regulatory reports, helps ensure their commitment to safety. Contractors should demonstrate experience complying with environmental regulations and implementing mitigation measures for minimal ecological disruption during construction. E. Quality assurance and quality control. QA/QC. A robust QA/QC program is essential for ensuring construction meets design specifications, safety standards, and regulatory requirements. Contractors with a documented QA/QC process provide confidence in the quality of their work. Contractors should have qualified personnel to conduct inspections and material testing, such as soil, concrete, and steel testing, as per project standards. F. Project management and scheduling. Skilled project managers help ensure the project stays on schedule and within budget. Contractors with strong project management resources are better equipped to handle large-scale, multi-phase transmission line projects. Contractors using project management software, GPS for routing, and remote monitoring tools offer more control and transparency, which is valuable for real-time tracking and accountability. G. Regulatory and licensing compliance. Contractors should hold all necessary licenses for construction, environmental management, and electrical installations. In some regions, contractors may also need specific certifications related to high-voltage work. Contractors must be knowledgeable about local, state, and federal regulations affecting transmission line projects, such as right-of-way laws, environmental protection acts, and construction codes. H. Bid evaluation and cost competitiveness. After meeting all technical and resource requirements, cost-effectiveness becomes a deciding factor. Contractors are evaluated on their proposed costs and any financial benefits they can offer while maintaining project quality. Contractors should submit detailed bids outlining potential risks, timelines, and mitigation strategies. Clarity in bidding enables the client to assess and manage project risks effectively. I. References and client feedback. Gathering feedback from previous clients can provide insights into a contractor's reliability, work ethic, and ability to meet deadlines and standards. Contractors with strong reputations are more likely to be consistent in delivering quality work. J. Capacity for risk management and contingency planning. Contractors should have strategies in place for managing project risks, including weather-related disruptions, material shortages, and labor issues. Contractors with backup equipment, secondary suppliers, or subcontractor relationships provide added security in case of unforeseen challenges. K. The selection process. The selection of engineering contractors typically involves a pre-qualification phase, where contractors are shortlisted based on criteria such as experience, resources, safety record, and financial health. Following this, the bidding phase evaluates competitive pricing, technical proposals, and timelines to determine the most suitable candidate. A thorough evaluation ensures that the contractor chosen is capable of delivering the project to specification and within budget, while also meeting regulatory and safety requirements. By considering these factors, clients can select contractors who are best suited to meet the project demands, ensuring successful completion of the transmission line construction project with minimal delays or complications. Sixth, consulting engineers. Consulting engineers play a crucial role in the successful planning, design, and execution of the transmission line project. The client, typically an electricity board or governmental agency, identifies and hires consulting engineers to provide expert guidance and ensure the project meets technical, regulatory, and quality standards. A. Defining project requirements. The client first outlines the project's technical requirements, scope, and expected outcomes. This includes project-specific needs such as capacity, route complexity, environmental considerations, and regulatory compliance. Based on these requirements, the client identifies the technical qualifications and expertise needed from consulting engineers. B. Pre-qualification and shortlisting. Clients often establish a pre-qualification process to assess the credentials of consulting firms or independent engineers. This step involves evaluating past performance, relevant experience, financial stability, and industry reputation. Consulting engineers with prior experience in similar transmission line projects, particularly those familiar with local terrain, environmental regulations, and grid requirements, are given priority. C. Experience in transmission line projects. Consulting engineers are evaluated on their experience with similar transmission line projects, including aspects such as high-voltage engineering, tower design, foundation analysis, and conductor selection. Preference is often given to firms or professionals with experience in projects involving complex terrains, environmental challenges, or unique technical requirements. D. Technical expertise and specialization. The client seeks consulting engineers with specialized expertise, such as structural engineering, geotechnical analysis, environmental assessment, and power systems engineering. Knowledge of transmission line standards, including load-bearing calculations, safety protocols, and material specifications, is essential for consulting engineers. E. Knowledge of regulatory compliance. Consulting engineers must be knowledgeable in regulatory compliance, including permits, environmental assessments, safety codes, and land acquisition regulations. Familiarity with local, state, and national regulations ensures that all construction activities align with legal standards, reducing the risk of project delays due to regulatory issues. F. Proposal and selection process. Qualified consulting firms or individuals submit detailed proposals outlining their methodology, project approach, cost estimates, timelines, and risk mitigation strategies. The client then reviews these proposals, often conducting interviews or presentations to assess the firm's or individual's understanding of the project. G. Cost and resource efficiency. Clients seek consulting engineers who offer cost-effective solutions, efficient resource allocation, and the ability to optimize project costs without compromising quality. The proposal should demonstrate a clear understanding of resource efficiency, such as materials, labor, and equipment, to ensure budget adherence. H. Risk management and contingency planning. Consulting engineers are assessed on their approach to risk management, including potential construction, environmental, and operational risks. Their experience with contingency planning in previous projects provides valuable insight into how they manage unexpected situations. I. Project management capabilities. Consulting engineers are expected to possess strong project management skills, including scheduling, coordination, and reporting. The client looks for consulting engineers capable of maintaining clear communication, managing timelines, and overseeing various project phases from planning to construction. J. Contractual agreement. Once the consulting engineers are selected, a contractual agreement is established outlining their responsibilities, timelines, and deliverables. Clear contract terms ensure that consulting engineers are accountable for meeting the project's expectations and aligning with the client's objectives. By carefully selecting experienced consulting engineers, the client ensures the project benefits from expertise, compliance assurance, and strategic oversight, leading to a smoother execution and a successful, durable transmission line. Seven. Right-of-way feasibility is a critical part of resource management in power transmission line construction. It involves assessing and securing the legal right to construct, operate, and maintain transmission lines across private or public land. Understanding ROW feasibility helps project planners anticipate and mitigate potential challenges, ensuring the project proceeds smoothly. Some of the key benefits of right-of-way feasibility in resource management are mentioned. A. Legal access and compliance. ROW feasibility ensures the project complies with local, state, and federal regulations regarding land use. Early assessment helps identify any legal constraints, easements, or permissions required to access specific parcels of land, facilitating smoother project execution. B. Minimizing project delays. Securing ROW access early in the project reduces the risk of delays caused by legal disputes, community opposition, or regulatory hurdles. Clear row feasibility also streamlines the construction timeline, as crews have unrestricted access to the necessary areas. C. Cost management. ROW feasibility helps estimate the financial requirements for land acquisition or compensation to landowners, which is critical for budget planning. Knowing the costs up front allows for better allocation of funds and prevents unexpected expenses during construction. D. Stakeholder engagement. Identifying ROW requirements early on provides an opportunity to engage with landowners, communities, and other stakeholders. Transparent communication helps address concerns and negotiate fair terms, fostering positive relationships and avoiding potential conflicts during the construction phase. E. Route optimization. ROW feasibility assessments enable planners to choose the most efficient and cost-effective route for the transmission line. By evaluating terrain, environmental impact, and property ownership, planners can avoid sensitive areas, reducing the need for additional permits or environmental mitigation. F. Environmental and social impact consideration. ROW studies include environmental impact assessments, which are necessary for regulatory approvals and community acceptance. These assessments help mitigate potential impacts on wildlife, natural habitats, and local communities, ensuring the project meets sustainability standards. G. Long-term maintenance and access. ROW feasibility guarantees long-term access to the transmission line for maintenance, repairs, and upgrades, ensuring the infrastructure's reliability and safety over its operational life. Proper ROW management also reduces the risk of service interruptions caused by access disputes. By conducting a thorough right-of-way feasibility assessment, resource managers can streamline operations, mitigate legal and financial risks, and build positive relationships with stakeholders. This approach helps ensure that the transmission line project is executed efficiently, sustainably, and within budget. With this, we complete the resource management requirements and move on to the planning phase. Third, planning management. In transmission line construction planning, several critical considerations are necessary to align demand with resource management effectively. These are particularly crucial before entering the tendering phase, as they directly impact project feasibility, cost efficiency, timeline, and overall quality. Below are the essential key points to consider. First, route survey and environmental assessment. Route optimization to conduct a feasibility study to map out the most efficient route, reducing length, costs, and environmental impact. Environmental and social impact to perform. Environmental impact assessments to understand any ecological, cultural, or social risks. Right-of-way and land acquisition to secure land rights, especially in regions with complex ownership patterns or protected areas. Environmental regulations compliance shall ensure compliance with local and international environmental regulations to avoid delays in obtaining permits. 2. Environmental and regulatory compliance. Permitting and approvals is to obtain permits and approvals from local, state, and federal authorities. This may involve environmental, zoning, and land use permits. Environmental considerations to address potential environmental impacts, including effects on wildlife, ecosystems, and local communities. Ensure compliance with environmental regulations and implement mitigation measures to minimize negative impacts. 3. Technical and design considerations. Voltage level and configuration is to define the voltage level based on load and distance requirements, as higher voltages reduce line losses over longer distances. Conductor type and size to choose conductors based on thermal limits, load carrying capacity, and expected weather conditions. Tower design to select tower types and spacing, considering terrain, conductor sag, and aesthetic or environmental constraints. Line protection and safety to plan for protection systems, for example, circuit breakers, relays to ensure safety and reliability. 4. Cost estimation and budgeting. Detailed cost analysis to develop a comprehensive cost estimate, including materials, labor, equipment, transportation, and permits. Contingency budgeting is to allocate contingency funds for unforeseen issues, weather delays, labor shortages, equipment breakdowns. Life cycle costing to consider. Not only the initial construction costs, but also operation and maintenance over the asset's lifespan. 5. Permitting and regulatory compliance. Regulatory approvals is to identify the regulatory bodies and necessary permits required for construction. Land use and environmental permits to secure any permits related to land use and environmental protection. Cross-border coordination, if applicable, for lines crossing international borders, coordinate with relevant authorities for approvals and standards alignment. 6th, risk assessment and mitigation planning. Risk identification to recognize potential risks, including natural disasters, political instability, supply chain disruptions, and environmental objections. Risk mitigation strategies to develop strategies to address each risk, such as alternate suppliers, adaptable schedules, and enhanced safety protocols. Insurance requirements to assess the need for insurance coverage against risks like delays, environmental liability, and equipment damage. 7. Project scheduling and timeline planning. Timeline estimates to develop a project timeline, considering each phase from planning, permitting, and procurement to construction and testing. Milestones and phasing to break the project into milestones, e.g., foundation completion, tower erection, to monitor progress and manage delays. Seasonal weather considerations. To plan construction activities around weather conditions, especially for challenging environments, to avoid disruptions. 8. Stakeholder engagement and communication. Community relations, to engage with local communities, to inform them of the project's benefits and address concerns, reducing resistance. Coordination with utility providers to communicate with existing utility infrastructure providers to avoid disruptions and ensure alignment. Cross-departmental coordination to align with procurement, legal, and environmental departments to ensure comprehensive planning. 9. Tender document preparation. Detailed scope of work to clearly outline the scope of work, including technical specifications, timelines, and performance standards. Pre-qualification. Criteria to set. Criteria to ensure only experienced, capable contractors are shortlisted, improving project quality and reducing risk. Evaluation and selection. Criteria to define clear, fair criteria for contractor selection based on technical capability, financial stability, and past performance. Risk allocation in contracts to ensure the contract fairly allocates risks between the client and contractor, avoiding ambiguity. By focusing on these aspects, clients can enhance the quality, efficiency, and resilience of the transmission line project, ensuring it meets demand requirements while effectively managing resources. Proper planning at this stage helps minimize potential issues during execution, streamlines the tendering process, and aligns the project for success. In this chapter, we've explored the prerequisites for transmission line construction, covering essential foundational aspects that ensure a successful project. Key takeaways include demand. Understanding the electricity demand is crucial for effective planning, as it helps determine the transmission line's required capacity, future scalability, and overall project objectives. Resource requirements. We reviewed the necessary resources for transmission line construction, including skilled personnel, specialized equipment, quality materials, and logistical support, all of which contribute to efficient and safe project execution. Planning. Effective planning encompasses route selection, environmental compliance, design, cost estimation, and construction logistics, setting a solid framework for the project's success. With a firm grasp of these prerequisites, we're well prepared to move forward with the specifics of transmission line construction. As we progress through our study program, we'll be emphasizing the importance of professional ethics by integrating key values at each step. Understanding what professional ethics entail and recognizing their significance are essential for us as professionals. These ethics guide our actions, ensure integrity, and foster trust in our careers, shaping not only our interactions, but also the impact we have in our respective fields. Professional ethics encompass the moral principles and standards that shape our conduct within our chosen professions. Typically outlined in a profession-specific code of ethics, these guidelines are designed to ensure that we act with integrity, responsibility, and respect in all our interactions, whether with clients, colleagues, or the broader community. By adhering to these ethical standards, we uphold the trust and credibility essential to our professional roles. Let's break down some key components. Integrity. Professionals should always act honestly and be truthful in their dealings. Avoiding deceptive practices and upholding fairness are essential. Confidentiality. As professionals, we often handle sensitive information. It's crucial to maintain confidentiality, ensuring that private data stays protected. Competence. Staying skilled and knowledgeable in our field is a must. This often means continuous learning and keeping up with the latest advancements. Responsibility. We have a duty to act in the best interests of our clients or the public, making sure our work does no harm and contributes positively to society. Respect. Ethical behavior also means treating everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their background, status, or beliefs. Accountability. Finally, we must take responsibility for our actions and decisions, being ready to explain and justify them when needed. Responsibility in professional ethics refers to the duty of professionals to act in the best interests of their clients, colleagues, and society as a whole. This concept is central to ethical behavior, as it involves being accountable for one's actions, making decisions that align with ethical standards, and contributing positively to the field and community. Here are some key aspects of responsibility in professional ethics. Accountability, ownership of actions. Responsibility involves taking ownership of one's actions, decisions, and their outcomes. Professionals should be prepared to explain and justify their decisions and to accept the consequences, whether positive or negative. Reliability. Being responsible means others can depend on you to fulfill your commitments, adhere to deadlines, and complete tasks as expected. Commitment to ethical standards. Adherence to codes of conduct. Professionals are expected to follow the ethical guidelines and standards set forth by their profession. These codes of conduct outline specific responsibilities to clients, colleagues, and the public. Integrity in decision-making. Ethical responsibility includes making decisions based on honesty, fairness, and transparency. This means avoiding deceptive practices, conflicts of interest, and any actions that could harm others. Protecting the interests of stakeholders. Client welfare. In professions such as healthcare, law, and engineering, professionals have a responsibility to prioritize their clients' well-being and safety. This includes acting in a manner that benefits the client and avoids harm. Public safety and well-being. Many professions impact the public directly. For example, engineers, doctors, and teachers have a duty to consider the effects of their work on society and the environment, ensuring it contributes positively to public welfare. Responsibility to stay competent. Continuous learning. A responsible professional strives to stay current in their field, engaging in continuous education to maintain relevant skills and knowledge, providing accurate and informed services. Professionals have a duty to provide services that reflect their expertise. Staying competent ensures that they offer reliable and accurate guidance, services, or products. Duty to report and rectify misconduct. Addressing mistakes. Responsible professionals acknowledge errors and work to correct them. This involves being transparent about mistakes and taking appropriate steps to prevent similar issues in the future. Whistleblowing. In cases where unethical or harmful practices are observed, professionals may have a duty to report such conduct. This responsibility helps to maintain ethical standards within the profession and protect others from harm. Environmental and social responsibility. Sustainability. In fields like engineering, environmental science, and business, there is a growing responsibility to consider the impact of one's work on the environment and to pursue sustainable practices. Corporate social responsibility. Many organizations adopt corporate social responsibility (CSR) policies, which outline their commitment to ethical practices that benefit society, the environment, and the economy. Transparency and honesty. Clear communication. Responsible professionals communicate openly and honestly with clients, colleagues, and other stakeholders. This involves providing accurate information and setting realistic expectations. Avoiding misrepresentation. Responsibility includes presenting one's qualifications and capabilities truthfully, avoiding any exaggeration or misrepresentation of expertise. Maintaining professional boundaries. Avoiding conflicts of interest. Responsible professionals manage their personal and professional interests separately to avoid conflicts. They ensure that personal gain does not compromise their duty to clients or employers. Respecting confidentiality. In many professions, responsibility includes protecting sensitive information shared by clients or employers, respecting privacy and confidentiality as an ethical obligation. Responsibility in professional ethics is about being accountable, dependable, and committed to ethical principles. It involves prioritizing the welfare of clients, colleagues, and society while maintaining professional competence and integrity. By upholding responsibility, professionals build trust, contribute positively to their field, and help uphold the standards and reputation of their profession. Today's quote is from John Ruskin. "Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of intelligent effort." The quote underscores that quality is the result of deliberate, informed actions and a proactive approach. It's a reminder that achieving high-quality outcomes takes time, focus, and a continuous commitment to doing things the right way. Ultimately, quality is an intentional pursuit that reflects the values and efforts of those who produce it. As we wrap up our session, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any of our upcoming chapters. It's your gateway to mastering transmission line supervision. This brings us to the end of Chapter 3, Prerequisites for Transmission Line Construction. In our next chapter, we'll explore the process of tendering and bidding. Until then, take care and thank you for joining us.